So, y'all are on my way to Bell Vernon, I believe, or what is it? Bell Vernon, Pennsylvania. Never been there. Having to drive through some mountains, and y'all know how much I love mountains, right? Driving through these motherfucking mountains out here, I wanted to come in here and give some commentary to a discussion that I watched between a one Candace Owens and a Marc Lamont Hill. These are what I call, this dynamic is what I call two coons on opposite sides of the track, okay? You got two different forms of coons, in my opinion, on the opposite side of the track. Now, and the reason that I wanted to do this is because I get so tired of black representation, or what would be black activism, in the form of a liberal talking point or a democratic talking point. I get so tired of that. I get tired of these being the people who represent the activism of black people. You very rarely going to see a conversation where they take out this Republican Democrat fuckery and chalk it all up as trash and have a conversation on simply the black existence, simply systematic racism. Marc Lamont Hill does not have this ability. He can't, because he is a Democrat. So therefore, his talking points must line up with the liberal talking points, right? Right. Now, me, I know I can't be represented in this conversation when they're having it about liberal and conservative, because both of them are trash. And then you have people that are talking about, Candace Owens shreds this dude, this Black Lives Matter activist dude. This is why Black Lives Matter ain't shit. This is why these woke activists and all this shit, this is why they ain't shit. They can't present arguments. That's the shit I don't like. Because if I'd have been in Marc Lamont Hill's situation, I would have went about it a whole different way, because she started out using the points that she made when she came out and talked about George Floyd. When she talked about the fact that she didn't feel, though, that he should be made a martyr out of. He shouldn't be held as a god. I mean, she described him as people making him a god on earth. Marc Lamont Hill said he disagreed, but he wasn't able to stay on the point as to why he disagreed. He let her derail him from his point. That the fact of the matter is, George Floyd is just a piece of the problem. And because y'all know how against Black Lives Matter I am, I've made the videos about being against Black Lives Matter. He has to, though, because he supports Black Lives Matter, he has to side with Black Lives Matter. You see what I'm saying? Candace Owens wouldn't be ready to deal with a motherfucker like me, because I don't support Black Lives Matter. But I'm not going to stand against the protest. I'm not going to stand against black people making their voices be heard. I wouldn't stand against that. Her thing is that she says that since George Floyd was a menace to black society, therefore he should not be made famous almost. His death he shouldn't be treated like this. And I would just simply say to her, well, choose somebody else. Doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter who it is. White American, 3Ks don't get this shit fucked up, incorporated society, it doesn't honor anyone. It doesn't matter. It could be George Floyd, who they would say have a criminal record. It could be anybody. It could be anyone, and this society has treated any black person that is gunned down, unarmed, or killed in any use or form of brutality, or what Marc Lamont Hill called victims of excessive force. Those people don't. No one cares. This society doesn't care about any of those people. It doesn't matter whether you go from Trayvon, who was murdered at the hands of a random ass white supremacist, or you dealing with a George Floyd, or you dealing with a Breonna Taylor, whether you're dealing with Ahmaud Arbery, whether you're dealing with Oscar Grant, whether you're dealing with Sandra Bland. It does not matter. there wouldn't be anybody good enough. Because if you watch what white society does, which is what the point he should have made, if you watch what they do to everybody who was murdered that is black, they're going to start talking about their criminal past. That's what they're going to start doing. Marc Lamont Hill allowed her to knock him off that point. Well, I don't even know if he had the point to be made, but he allowed her to knock him off. And she started talking about basically black on black violence. She started talking about that. That became, you know how they do that, right? And she started talking about the fact that, you know, black people don't really care about black people being murdered in the hood. Black people don't care about that. They don't protest for that. They don't march against that. And, you know, I get so tired of this, because this woman sits here and acts like she does all this research. She reads all these articles. And you'll have these would-be so-called smart black people that will claim that they're doing all this reading, but why don't they know about the organizations that are in black neighborhoods and black areas that do have Stop the Violence marches and rallies all the time? They do come together and try to stop gang violence. That do make these things an issue. These groups are never spoken about. Why don't Marc Lamont Hill know about these groups? To counter some of this narrative. Why don't he know about that? Why ain't he talking about that? I know about it. I know these groups exist. But he made another good point as to, well, typically, if somebody black is murdered by somebody else black, they're going to get their asses locked up. They're going to get locked up. He let her derail him on damn near every point he made. Even when it came down to what she would call rioting. He didn't even talk about the white folk that run around out here rioting. The cave riots. He didn't even bring that up. How are you sitting there letting this woman, because she's so clearly anti-black that it doesn't make any sense. But how are you letting her make these points when you don't just oppose that to the way that the caves act? For us to sit here and allow anybody, I don't give a damn if it's Candace Owens or any cave or whoever they are, to allow them to act like somehow white people are these civil citizens, the moral citizens. They do everything right. They don't never riot. They don't never do anything. For us to allow it to be the conversation is very problematic for me. Marc Lamont Hill didn't even mention that. Motherfucker, they will ride after a fucking basketball game. They'll turn some cars over. To make it seem as though black people are the only ones looting. When we saw the evidence that it was the caves out there looting as well. Caves setting shit on fire. He didn't even bring that shit up. She was able to say that when we act like that, it makes us look criminal, but failed to say that there's an entire system that makes everything we do criminal. Damn near everything we do. We are the criminals of society. That's what the propaganda has done. That's what anti-black society has been built based on. He doesn't mention this. I don't know how he didn't mention it. Well, I mean, I guess I do. But in my mind, me in that position, I don't see how that's not even mentioned. You don't have to cuss this lady out to make decent points as to what this society has done to propagandize the image of the black man, woman, and child. Even outside of the cops murdering our people. Now, her argument was that, well, you know, white people get killed more by the cops than black people. She made that argument. This is an argument you'll see them make. It's an argument they'll throw out of left field to try to deflect the fact that there's an entire system. This is why I don't like focusing on just cops. This is why I've told y'all so many times to stop focusing on just cops. It makes you have to have this singular conversation where all they have to say was, well, white folk, they dealing with this shit more than you guys are. Not even weighing in on the fact that they make up way more of the population. Way more of the population. But when you allow your entire existence to come down, when you allow every move that you make, every big move that you make, every outcry that you have is based on police brutality, this is what happens to you. This is what you're allowing to happen to you. This is why I say we don't need to have this conversation and only deal with that one thing. There are so many things happening out here in this anti-black society. And it's not just the foot soldiers of white supremacy. It's not just that. When you do that, you allow people like Candace Owens to sit here and say, well, they brutalizing and murdering white people the same way. You see? He could have then mentioned, if he had been on his, what someone call P's and Q's, he could have then mentioned, say, well, those are poor white people, the disposables of this society. A lot of them going through that, them the poor ones. Not the so-called middle class or upper middle class or upper class. Or the 1%. None of them. They're not going through shit like that. He could have given the examples of even some lower class white people, caves, murderers, being apprehended in humane ways. Being apprehended on the cool. He could have made some of those examples. But he didn't. He allowed her to skirt through there and act like, that black people are essentially creating this issue. This is just simply a microcosm of the issue because, again, as I continue to tell y'all, it's not about the white cops, the racist-ass, cave-ass white cops murdering our people. It's about the fact that we don't receive justice. And that could be enough to hold down the claim. That'd be enough for you to stand on right there. But Marc Lamont doesn't do this. He allows her to start talking about some affirmative action, how that's racist. That's discriminatory. How black people shouldn't be allowed in certain colleges because black people just ain't been kept up to speed. We can't compete academically. And this is okay. Mind you, this is okay. He didn't even mention the public school system. Like, how the fuck do you sit here and let this coon-ass hoe start talking to you about affirmative action as far as college is concerned? Her main point being that black people just aren't academically, we don't even have the academic ability to compete on that level. We don't even have the ability. Not dealing with the subpar public school systems that many of us attend. He didn't even mention that. Didn't mention it not once. They were giving their examples based on Harvard and Yale. Why are the most prestigious colleges and universities in this country, why are they the white ones? Because some can talk about HBCUs. He mentioned Howard in there. But Howard is not a prestigious college like a Yale or a Harvard. These are some of the most prestigious colleges and universities in the world. But in this nation, most definitely. Why are those the white ones? How'd that happen? Can we talk about how that happened? The wealth that was accumulated off the backs of our ancestors that was used to fund these colleges, these universities. He don't even mention that. That's why when people talk about the best schools, they're going to talk about Yale and Harvard. Typically, these are going to be the two schools that you hear about. How they get there? What happened there? What land did they still even put the universities on the land? How they get there? The head start they have as to establishing their prestige before HBCUs were even a thing. Nobody wants to have that conversation. Okay, I digress, right? He doesn't even mention this shit. She starts caping for the Asian caves as to how they're being discriminated against because they perform at such a high level. Because they're raised different as to how they look at scholastics. And I couldn't argue against that. I couldn't argue against the point she made about scholastics. And how Asians, you know, their moms and dads typically be really, really serious about their education, down to damn near abusive about how they're going to make sure them kids make them grades. I wouldn't argue against that. Wouldn't argue against that. But she caping for them. Do y'all notice that Candace Owens is never, ever, ever caping for black people? She has nothing good to say about black people at all. Ever. That's problematic. How is she a voice for black Americans, which is what people would claim? She's the voice of the conservative black American, but she's never speaking up for you. She's never speaking up for black people at all. There's nothing that black people go through that Candace Owens will actually speak up against other than the Democrats and the legislation, which she does mention that. The Democrats. And how their policies have set black people back. That I wouldn't argue against that. Again, this is what happens when you don't affiliate yourself with Democrat or Republican. I haven't got shit to do with that. I would agree. Their policies have set us back. But the only difference about the Republicans is, one, a lot of times they're overtly racist and they are seeking to take the government out of the situation, which I'm not saying there's an issue with that. But what they're saying is let capitalism just thrive. Let it do what it do. That's the same thing that was made for the argument for slavery. That's capitalism thriving. Essentially, it just happens to be on at the sacrifice of human life. See, it's one thing to say, well, just let the system work, let businesses be built and all this shit, when you're not talking about how the capital is built for these businesses. Same way you don't talk about how the capital is built for these universities. This is why Marc Lamont Hill cannot have this conversation. That's why he couldn't do anything. Now, I'm not saying that Candace Owens supporters would have felt what he was saying, because they would. Because black Candace Owens supporters are coons, and white Candace Owens supporters just simply like seeing somebody be against the black race, or black race. If you're anti-black, then white people gonna fuck with you. They're gonna fuck with you heavy. All you gotta do is be anti-black. And that's what Candace Owens is. They talk about liberals a lot. Liberals and things that liberals have done. And I wouldn't be able to argue against the things that liberals have done, because liberals don't give a fuck about black people at all. She says that Democrats don't care about black people. And he didn't even say, but Republicans do. He didn't even do that. He just let her say it. Let her get away with this shit. And then he proved himself to be a fucking complete kook when they got into the conversation about the LGBTQ. Oh, he showed he's a complete goddamn... something's wrong with this dude. Something is wrong with him. And he should not be representing black people at all. Because his argument was, because Candace Owens made the point, well, I'm not going to drift into their little crazy ass world when we call it man and woman, woman and man. Can a man get pregnant? Very simple. All he had to say was no. Because that's the truth. Those are biological facts. He couldn't even do that. This motherfucker gonna say sometimes. Like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about sometimes? Like, this is what makes even the would-be liberal Democrats, this is what makes them look so goddamn dumb. What you mean sometimes? Never. Never. But then they get into it about this, and Marc Lamont Hill is sitting here acting like that there is some sense to be made on a person being born a man, but forcing society to call them a woman. And if you don't say that, then you're a bigot. Candace Owens lighting his ass up right there. And I wouldn't even there's nothing, we wouldn't be able to have that. I wouldn't argue with that because I'm not about to do that for no goddamn body. I don't give a damn if I get canceled or whatever the fuck people want to do. I don't care. You're not a woman, sir. Don't give a damn if you change your name to Tiffany, is one of the names that they use. I don't give a damn what you change your name to. You don't have a menstrual cycle, you can't have a baby. You're not a woman. It is what it is. And I'm not about to do that with you. But I only wanted to talk about this in short, because I'm not going to just sit here and, it was an over hour long conversation, and I don't, I ain't got no notes wrote down. I'm out here driving and shit, so I'm maybe not touching on every single little thing they said. But if you look up Candace Owens, Marc Lamont Hill, you'll be able to find the conversation if you're interested in watching the conversation at all. I looked through it. It's problematic for me because people like Marc Lamont Hill don't understand. This motherfucker can't even get up there and represent. He can't. He doesn't have the ability to represent because he's too far gone and he doesn't understand anything outside of what will be liberal talking points. He don't get anything else. And because of that, he can't speak for me. He can't speak for us. That's how I feel anyway. And anytime they have these people in these positions, the reason they put them there is because they know that they have to stick to these liberal ass, dumb ass talking points, and they're not gonna make no damn sense. And they look forward to that. They look forward to that shit. And I wish they would allow. Well, I know they won't. I won't waste a wish on this. Let me take the wish back. I can save them for some other shit. I think that to have a conversation honestly, they need to have people on there who really, really, really are about black people and more than just police brutality. That's not the only issue our people have out here. People that are going to have a broad conversation about racism and what's going on, and people that can rebut the stupid ass shit that people like Candace Owens says. They need to have somebody up there with some sense, some common sense, because you ain't even got to go through a whole lot. Just have some common sense about yourself, understand the big picture, and if you can't do that, I don't think people like Marc Lamont Hill should even be on there, because all he does is make black activists of all kinds, because they lump us all in there together. They make us all look like we crazy and like we dumb and like we can't stand up against people like Candace Owens. But that's all the fuck I want to say. If y'all get a chance to, feel free to go watch that shit if you can make it through it. I did it just to see, how he was representing us through the conversation, and it was a fail. It was a heavy fail. A couple of times he made points, but he didn't stick to them. He allowed her next question to override what he was even trying to hold down to. And again, he may not have the mental fortitude to even hold down to his points. He may not be able to do that. But that's what I expect. His ass is a damn coon. He showed that much just being in this conversation. Sitting here talking about some goddamn, that sometimes men can have kids. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It doesn't even make any sense. And that would, even if he would have did good all the way up into that point, when it got to the trans part, even if he would have did good all the way up into that point, it's like, yo, what the fuck are you talking about? That would have negated everything he said the whole time. Because now you sound like a complete fucking idiot. But again, I think he failed black people the entire conversation. And he should be, if he goes back to look at that, hopefully, you know, he should feel some type of shame. He should feel some type of shame about himself. Seriously. But that's all the fuck I want to say. Y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Links to follow me on social media in the description box. Black first, second, and third. And we need representatives that speak from that perspective. Not allowing coon-ass Candace Owens to get up there and say anything. But not deal with systematic racism at all whatsoever. Shout out to Team Rob. Y'all already know what the fuck it is. I'm out.